Should we start?
Yes.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. نبتدي يا خلود.
Yes. We are starting.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Arab Organization for Human Rights in the UK, I would like to thank you for joining us today. We are pleased to welcome those of you who have been able to attend and contribute to this webinar. Today's title is Threatening Sanctions Enough? European Complicity in Gaza's Genocide Under the Spotlight. The webinar comes in light of recent decisions by the United Kingdom and the European Union to suspend certain trade agreements with Israel, following continued genocide and atrocities committed against civilians in the Gaza Strip. These long overdue measures raise pressing questions. Are they enough? What impact do they really have? And then, will Europe apply the same standards it enforced against Russia to the Israeli occupation? The seminar will host a distinguished panel of politicians, diplomats, human rights activists, and legal experts who will examine the depths of European involvement in the ongoing genocide and explore pathways for meaningful accountability. First of all, let me remind you of today's key points of discussions that include, first, Europe's material support for Gaza's genocide, and an in-depth look at the arms export, diplomatic backing, and political cover provided by European governments to the Israeli occupation since being in the beginning of the war. Second, a key point of today, double standards in international responses, Ukraine versus Gaza, kind of comparative analysis of Europe's swift and unified sanctions against Russia versus its hesitant and symbolic approach to Israel's war crime. Three, beyond symbolism, what does suspending trade agreements actually achieve? An examination of the legal and practical consequences of current European measures and what stronger actions are both possible and necessary. Fourth, key point of today is Europe's legal and moral responsibility, a discussion on how European states may be held accountable for complicity in war crimes and the role of national courts, civil society, and political institutions in this process. And last one, key point for today is selective justice and collapse of international law, how the silence and inaction of the international system further isolate Gaza's victims and undermine the universality of human rights law. Today's distinguished speakers include first Mr. Syed Ibrahim Al-Habashi, member of the Malaysian Parliament and chairman of the Palestine Committee, Ms. Tesh, Sidi, member of the Spanish Parliament and sponsor of the parliamentary motion to halt exports to Israel. Three, Mr. Malik bin Achour, member of the Belgian Parliament representing the Socialist Party. Four, Mr. Manu, Pineda, member of the European Parliament and chair of the delegation for relations with Palestine. Five, Mr. Sidoti, member of the United Nations Commission of Inquiry on Palestine and Israel. Six, Ms. Alicia Koutsoulieris, American writer and director of communications and partners for Palestine. And lastly, Mr. Jim Moran, former member of the United States Congress. Allow me just to explain the presentation format. Each speaker will have 5 to 7 minutes to present his testimony and insights. After all speakers have finished their presentation, if time permits, we will have a discussion session lasting not more than 20 minutes. During this session, speakers can add their thoughts and comments on their other speakers' contributions. At the end of the webinar, each speaker will have 1 minute to provide their final words and conclusion. So let's start right away, and thank you very much for listening to us. And let's start and give the floor to Mr. Chris Sidoti, member of the United Nations Commission of Inquiry. Let's start with Mr. Malik bin Achour, member of the Belgian Parliament representing the Social Party. Mr. Malik, thank you for being with us, and you may have the floor.
Well, thanks a lot. And first of all, I want to thank you gratefully for your kind invitation. It's a great honor to have the opportunity to speak on such a panel. I will be short, and I won't repeat how horrific, how unhuman, how genocidal is the U.S.-Israeli war on Gaza people. I won't repeat how shameful, how disgraceful, how criminal is both passive and active complicities from some European capitals. I just want to share several points with you. The first one is that speeches, included official speeches, are changing. Lines, I think, are moving, probably too short, too late, but it moves. And it moves as a result of the wide and decreasing mobilization of the civil society, especially through social media. And I think it's very important and very effective. That's why we must continue to ensure that the situation is qualified by the right words. And I see, for example, in the French public debate, to which, as you know, we are in Belgium very connected to. In the French public debate, for several weeks, the use of words such as genocide, deportation, ethnic cleansing, concentration camps, and so on, the use of such words has become like common. And actually they are used more widely, and they are used in and their use is less controversial. And it's so important. It's so important because it helps to break down the powerful Israeli narrative. And this narrative, as you know, is designed to deny, to minimize, to undermine their crimes, and of course, at the end of the day, to evacuate the issue of accountability. So that's the first point. And if the speeches are changing, I think we still need for concrete acts to be done by governments. And there are two kind of concrete acts that need to be done. First of all, and urgently, of course, two things. Humanitarian aid must be delivered with respect for the principle of independence. That's very important. The control of Israeli authorities is just unacceptable. And secondly, of course, ceasefire, permanent and final. And beyond, secondly, beyond the emergency, and I would say on the political level, I would like to share 4 points that for me are priorities. First of all, is suspension of the EU-Israel Association Agreement. Secondly, the end of arms deliveries to Israel. In Belgium, we don't deliver for like 15 years from Belgian defense industries. It's forbidden for 15 years. But we still have a transit issue. Three, full support, and I would even say rehabilitation of the ICG and ICC, included the full execution of the warrants against Netanyahu and Gallant. And I want to remind that the court staff are personally threatened by the US administration, and it's also a shame. Last point, last political priority is this one: diplomatically, economically, on defense issue. We all know that the US still have a huge weight in the Middle East region, especially in the Gulf. Nevertheless, I would say that Europeans should do more to find a place in the region and to rebuild I would say, stronger alliances with the Arab countries in order to coordinate bigger pressure on Israel and drawn together perspectives for lasting peace. I would conclude this way. I'm deeply convinced that part of our common future is at stake in Gaza. The world based on the rule of law, equally for everyone, no matter your religion, no matter the color of your skin, is at stake in Gaza. And that's why the question of Palestine is not like others. And that's why we cannot give up. And that's why we won't give up. That's what I wanted to say as first intervention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Malik, for this insight. And now we move to Ms. Tesh Sidi, member of the Spanish Parliament and sponsor of a parliamentary motion to halt arms exports to Israel. Ms. Tesh, are you there?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you can have that.
Thank you, Ms. Al-Khair. Thank you
Okay.
very much for everyone,
Okay.
and thank you for having me today here. I'm 100% agree with Malik. I think at the beginning when we start talking at the 7th of October about Palestine here in Spain, at the beginning they used to call us, or MPs or human rights defenders, they used to call us terrorists, you're with Hamas and all these kind of things, because they wanted to implement a narrative that Palestinian people has not the right to resist, and especially because all media in Spain and especially in Europe, they wanted to forget all these 70 years of occupation. So some of MPs and Manu Pineda, my colleague as well here, we stand with Palestine since the beginning because we said this is coming from an occupation. We need to keep supporting UN work in Gaza. We need to talk about all these years of occupation. And we stand at the beginning, and now the narrative is in another narrative. We are seeing a genocide. We are seeing crimes of war. This is going to be called the genocide of this century. So I know at the beginning, the Spanish government stood with Palestine, and I think in all Arab countries we have kind of good reputation on this situation, but we think it's not enough. Why is not enough? Because we had agreements with Israel, especially with arms. We asked for an embargo since the beginning, but wasn't applied. We still holding votes, we still having agreements with Israel. So is why we asked for a new law. This law was approved the last week here in Spain. Is not yet implemented because, as you know, in the parliament takes time, but it's urgent to apply an embargo with Israel. As we done with Russia, this is not something new. This is not something we cannot do. We have the commitment, and we need more political commitment with it. It's not a slogan. Supporting Palestine is not a slogan. Has to come with embargo and especially economical agreements. I know that economical agreements we can do them throughout the European Union, but as well our party has we call it consumer minister, which is in charge of all like economical policies. So we ask as well for total boycott. Israel doesn't occupy Palestine for a nationalist. Any occupation is because of a nationalism feeling, or because it's all related with economical profit. So we need to stop and isolate Israel with all the power we have. We know that Spain is unique in European Union, but we can go forward. Is a demand from our civil society. Our civil society was really stand with Palestine since the beginning, especially in the universities, but our parties in the government, as you know, we are a coalition. So our ministers in this coalition stood with Palestine since the beginning, and we asked for more like significant measures. So I want to highlight this: is supporting Palestine cannot be a marketing. It's not a slogan. We can see all these awful images, so we cannot stop here. So we are happy. We are happy that we are changed the narrative. We are happy that we stand since the beginning in the right side of history. I think that is something gonna follow us for years and years, because the cause of Palestine is the cause of the world. And this is, as well as I said at the beginning, this is not a slogan. This means that you are in the right side of history. And I think that is the thing, especially me, and I think as well all MPs here in Spain think about that. We stood since the beginning, but I think we need to do more. I'm gonna leave it here because I'm pretty sure you're gonna add more. I just wanted to highlight this latest law of embargo, and tomorrow we're gonna register another law for the debate, which is related with stopping all economical agreements with Israel, because it's another really important measure. But I think as we need to support more and more all the work that does the UN, because any citizen in Spain now is afraid by seeing that the UN, which is an international organization that supports human rights, is unprotected in this case. So if the UN is unprotected, if the UN has no the mechanisms to stop this, who's gonna, why tomorrow they can go after any of us? So we need to support all the international organizations against this Trump policies, against all these governments that are unlegitimizing their work there. So thank you very much. I think social media, even it's hard for us to see all this video, thanks that this genocide is happening now in the era of social media, and social media is helping to report all these crimes. Even we don't like to see all this video, even all tech companies are banning it and being complice of Israel. But thank you for all the journalists in Palestine that are reporting this information every day, and as well companies like Al Jazeera and other media channels. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Tesh. Thank you very much. And Mr. Syed Ibrahim Al-Habashi, you may have the floor. You're a member of the Malaysian Parliament and chairman of the Palestine Committee. Mr. Syed, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Nadir. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening here in Malaysia, but good afternoon to all of you in the rest of the world. I'm very grateful today for being given the opportunity to still speak in the Arab Organization for Human Rights in UK webinar. I think it is always an important part of the time and history where we still have conversations about the situation in Gaza. I am lost for words, actually, and that's the reason why I don't think I was able to also attend the webinar tonight. But in the interest of all, and I think in the interest of the Palestinians themselves, I indulge myself to also still attend and give certain explanations or words that I will be able to address, especially to the European community and the Western countries. So I will not repeat any of those that you have mentioned already, but obviously there are things which we need to state. For example, that the situation is very harrowing. We know about the situation that we are now almost 600 days after October 7th, and there are more than 16,000 children dead, and they are quite defenseless. So in this context, I think we must question the adequacy of the international community's response, and to be specific, European countries. Is it sufficient for some European countries to merely threaten sanctions against the Israeli occupation? I think that's notwithstanding that it's long overdue. It's very long overdue, but is it enough? And is it that you will see that is it true that the European complicity in this war is quite evident? Because from 2014 to 2022, the European Union granted export licenses to Israel with approximately 6.3 billion pounds. And this is in terms of supplying arms that have contributed to the devastation of Gaza. And Germany in particular accounted for about 30% of Israeli's arms imports between 2019 and 2023 alone. So I know there are some nations, I heard from Tesh just now, Spain and also from Malik, from Belgium and even Netherlands, I think have taken steps now to halt the arms sales to Israel. But these measures are unfortunately not uniformly applied across Europe. And I believe that is what was mentioned by Tesh just now, that we need to now mobilize and give enough pressure among the parliamentarians, among the litigators now to come forward and enact laws that would be able to ensure that there would be a stop to the arms deals, to the embargo and so on. And as you mentioned earlier also, Tesh, that there is hypocritical action here. When we talk about stringent sanctions, it was imposed on Russia in response to its action in Ukraine, but not for the case of Gaza or Israel. There's no trade restrictions, there's no financial penalties, and so on. And I think these are things that we can work on still. So as a member of parliament from Malaysia, I think it is very quite clear that all members of parliament here supports the Palestinian cause. We are for freedom, we are for justice, we are for peace. And I would like to urge the international community and of course the European and Western countries to step up and take decisive and serious action to first immediate cessation of hostilities, where we should demand an immediate end to the Israeli military offensive. We have to end the war. We have to ensure that there is enough pressure. And I tend to believe that Israel views themselves as part of the Western world. And unless serious concerns are raised by the Western world themselves, Israel will not budge. Secondly, I think we should call it a complicity. We should call it genocide. We should call it apartheid, and we should end the complicity by calling out all of these actions by Israel as criminal policies and distance ourselves from the policies, revising and ending all economic dealings with Israel. Number three, you mentioned earlier about unimpeded humanitarian access. We must ensure the delivery of essential aid to Gaza without obstruction. I think this has mentioned by many European or Western countries. Today I read that Germany and Finland as well urge for the aid pressure on Israel, and also Sweden also summons their ambassador to ask to question them. But I think it's not enough. We must ensure that there is a strong pressure that such humanitarian aid must pass through, and they cannot be blaming it on Hamas just because they're saying that Hamas is blocking the aid. This is ridiculous. Number four, comprehensive arms embargo. They must implement a full arms embargo on Israel to prevent from the escalation, and also to ensure that there will be no more civilian casualties. Number five, accountability for violations. Investigate and hold accountable those responsible for violations of international law, including potential war crimes, which is an essential part of democracy. Western world do hold on to this international law. I understand, yes, we are saying that America also holds on to this international law. Israel also must hold on to this international law, but they are violating everything that has been already ordained under the international law. But again, I think pressure now from the Western countries is something permanent or something very pertinent. Number six, equitable application of international law. Apply international legal standards uniformly without bias or double standards. Number seven, we need to mobilize the legislators across Europe. I do believe that when we are member of parliament, Tesh as well as Malik, we are member of parliament, we are the voice of the people. We also develop or put up public opinion, and this is still influential, especially in Europe. And I think that we should work again with multilateral institutions such as ICJ and ICC, as mentioned earlier by Malik and also by Tesh. And of course, notwithstanding all of that, the basic and strategic nature of this is that we must spread the correct narrative of Palestine. The genocide didn't start on October 7th, but it started during Nakba 1947-1948. The root cause of the ongoing Israeli policies and ideology of genocidal and Zionism. And lastly, I would also like to suggest that the Western countries now push hard for the recognition of Palestine as an independent state. And I hope that this is something not rhetoric. I know a lot of people will be saying that we have mentioned this several times before, but we will not stop mentioning it for the sake of the Palestinians and for the sake of humanitarian peace and justice in the world. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this insight, Mr. Syed. And now we move to Mr. Jim Moran, former member of the United States Congress. Mr. Moran. Can you turn on your mic?
Is that okay now?
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
You're probably better off, and I'm better off if it was muted, but nevertheless, I'm very happy to be included in this discussion. I agree with everything that has been said, and the people that have said it are far more articulate than me. But I will share some of my thoughts for the roughly 5 minutes that you suggested. I was born 80 years ago. And every one of those years, there has been a reminder to the world that the horrors of the Holocaust can never again be repeated. And the world has been in agreement. That message has been repeated with movies and books and newspapers and magazines and powerful statements. But here we are 80 years later, and the right-wing Zionist government in Israel every day shows more commonality with the Nationalist Socialist Party of Germany 80 years ago. This is a fascistic government bent on eliminating an entire people that they see as a threat or simply see as an opportunity whose land they can take to expand their geographic, political, and economic strength. And yet, after 80 years of being reminded that what happened to the Jewish people by the Nazis 80 years ago, we are allowing it to be repeated. Because this is about human nature, not just about Jewish people or Palestinians or Muslims or Christians, whatever. And the community of the world, just like us, each of us individually, we have a good side and a bad side. They're always in conflict. And yet, when the good people of the world choose to turn a blind eye, to pretend that this has nothing to do with them, then this kind of evil that is taking place in Palestine will be allowed to continue. I do agree that the United States is particularly responsible for this because we have provided the funding, much of the arms, military equipment, and the political cover to allow this right-wing government of Israel to take the land and eliminate the lives of the Palestinian people, the vast majority of whom that have been killed are women and children. Another thing, though, that has happened over the last 80 years, which is relevant to your question, do the sanctions make sense, is that Europe as a whole has deferred to the United States, has allowed the United States to really dominate its economy, its politics, and of course, its military capability. The United States, Europe has in some ways be seen as kind of a stepchild of the United States. That's got to stop. Europe has far more influence, power, and capability to change the direction of the world than it's willing to acknowledge. It was certainly a step in the right direction for the European Union to be formed, because now you've got a population that's roughly the same size as the United States, an economy that could be comparable, and a voice that has to be heard. Europe has to speak out, particularly when the United States is unwilling to for a number of reasons. Sanctions are a good step forward, but it's insufficient, as have some of the previous speakers said. Europe needs to rise to this occasion and recognize that what the crimes that have been committed by Putin in invading another country, that same rule of law and morality should be applied elsewhere, wherever it exists. And it's certainly happening in the Middle East. The people doing this know what they're doing. A former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Olmert, just wrote an article in Haaretz this morning. It was published. He said, this is a war without purpose. It's a private political war. He's half right. On the part of Netanyahu, Ben-Gvir, Smotrich, and their right-wing allies, it is a political war. It's their only opportunity to achieve this extremist vision that they have for a greater Israel. But it's not a war without purpose. Its purpose is to eliminate the Palestinian people, to take their land, and to convert that part of the Middle East into a greater, more powerful Israel. We cannot allow that to be done at the expense of 2.3 million people who have nowhere else to go. The vast majority of these people have done nothing wrong. They're being killed for the accident of their birth, being born in Palestine. So it's time for the rest of the world to speak up. And I don't want people to believe that this is some kind of conspiratorial war against Jewish people. The reality is, and I know many of you have watched what's happened on elite American university campuses over the last year or so, there have been protests. On those campuses, there's only a handful of Palestinian students. There's a disproportionate number of Jewish students and Jewish professors. They are the ones that are leading these protests, but you can't find that revealed in the American media. It's being squelched deliberately. There's a group called Jewish Voices for Peace, which is primarily professors and some of the best students at these universities who are speaking out against what is happening in Palestine. But you would never know because of disproportionate influence over the media. Those Jewish Voices for Peace and other people like the J Street Group and Peter Beinart and so on, they have a responsibility too, perhaps an even greater responsibility, to save the whole raison d'etre for Judaism that goes back to the Old Testament, Tikkun. You will be judged ultimately by how you treat the other. And obviously the Palestinians are the other, who have suffered under a regime of apartheid for far too long, since 1948 really, and treated as a different people, as a lesser people. That's just got to stop. It's wrong. It's evil. And yet, the rest of the world is allowing it to happen. Sanctions are a step forward. But Europe and the rest of the world has to speak out louder, more forcefully, and more insistently. And what is happening today, every day, is wrong, has to stop. And if we continue to be so apathetic, we are equally responsible. I think I've gone over my 5 minutes.
No, that was
I'm
so
just getting
insightful.
started. So.
And Mr. Moran, I have a quick question for you that you mentioned that the vast majority of protesters inside U.S. campuses were Jewish and the Palestinians were minority. Well, I cannot figure out this. I mean, what do you want to say by this? I mean, what's the point behind this proportions?
Well, I think it's important to understand that there has been a manipulation within the Western media. For one thing, there was a strategy concocted by people within the Israeli government and by some of the particularly Zionist groups in the United States, that any opposition to the Gaza conflict, call it ethnic cleansing, whatever, any opposition should be called anti-Semitism. That's nonsense. It's not anti-Semitic to oppose genocide, to oppose the destruction of an entire group of people, of nearly 60,000, primarily women and children. That's not anti-Semitic. But the intent has been to suggest that people who oppose the war are really expressing a discrimination against Jewish people. And so the reason I'm saying this is that the reality is quite different. There are a lot of Jewish people in the United States and Europe who understand how wrong this is. They need to be part of the leadership to stop it. They are at least equally responsible. And I think particularly young Jewish people, they would agree with, most of them would agree with everything that has been said on this broadcast. But those voices are being suppressed. And so I'm trying to make clear that this is not about Jewish people. This is about saving humanity, about taking many of the ideas of the Enlightenment that was disproportionately expressed and written about by Jewish philosophers and thinkers, taking those ideas and applying them to what's happening today. It's also true that, history is almost, in many ways, it's a sequence of irony. Many of the people who are most extreme in the far-right Israeli government are not even Semitic people. They were East German Slavic people. Some were Khazars who have nothing to do with what happened with the Old Testament and so on. But people don't understand that. And I think that ignorance is being used as a strength on the part of the people who want to suppress the reality of what's taking place in Palestine and the reality of what this represents in the history of Western civilization.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moran. Your point is so clear. Thank you. And now we move to Mr. Chris Sidoti, member of the UN Commission of Inquiry on Palestine and Israel. Mr. Chris, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. And I'm very pleased to have an opportunity of contributing to this discussion. The webinar raises the question, is threatening sanctions enough? I want to come at this question from a different perspective. I want to start by looking at the decision of the International Court of Justice issued last July. The court spent some time considering the question of the lawfulness or otherwise of the Israeli occupation, the settlement policies, and the policies and practices generally in relation to Palestinian people. After giving this issue detailed consideration and hearing submissions from a very large number of states, the court said that the occupation was unlawful, that the settlements were unlawful, and that Israel had an obligation under international law to end the occupation and the settlement policy. The decision of the court related very much to the obligations of other states as well, not just to the obligations of Israel, the state of Israel. The court made it very clear that because Israel was breaching major, serious obligations under international law, other states had an obligation not to aid or assist in the commission of those unlawful acts in any way. Now, this immediately placed an obligation on other states to examine their relationship with the state of Israel as a whole, not just the occupied territories, to determine whether there was any way in which they were aiding and assisting the continuation of these unlawful acts. So this question is not simply a question of whether sanctions are a good idea or not in placing pressure on the state of Israel. It's a more fundamental question about whether the states other than Israel are in any way aiding and assisting the continuation of unlawful activity. The court indicated that this kind of responsibility went right across the board. It covered military support, clearly, but also financial and economic support, political aid and support, and cultural engagement. My expectation, and the expectation of the Commission of Inquiry, of which I'm a member, was that states would immediately respond to this very strong, very detailed examination by the court and the court's decision by undertaking a thorough review of all aspects of their relationship with the state of Israel. And as part of that review, considering whether any aspect of those relationships constituted aiding and assisting the continuation of the unlawful acts. This was not just a good policy move on the part of other states, but a binding obligation under international law. It's a question of complicity, again, part of the title for this webinar. We don't know of any states or groups of states that have undertaken this thorough review. There certainly are none that have released publicly the results of their review. And yet, this was the inevitable obligation arising from the court's decision that they were all under. Where are the reviews? Where is the examination of whether states, and I mean individual states, but also groups like the European Union, where is the examination of whether the political relationships with the state of Israel are in any way aiding and assisting the occupation? Where is the thorough investigation of all of the economic and financial links? These extend to questions of trading with settlements, clearly, investing in them, but also economic relationships with Israeli firms, such as information technology firms, firms developing surveillance equipment, that results in products that are used to support the occupation. I don't know of any such reviews, and yet these are obligations arising on individual states and groups of states in accordance with the decision of the International Court of Justice. Now, European states and other Western states, such as my own Australia, are always very strong in supporting what they call the rule of law, the international rule of law. And yet the international rule of law requires respect for the decisions of the International Court of Justice and a willingness to act upon the court's orders and the court's views, but that hasn't happened. This kind of examination is just as relevant now as it was last July. In fact, I would say even more so. Our Commission of Inquiry has found and reported from as far back as June last year that the Israeli actions in Gaza since the 7th of October 2023 constitute war crimes and crimes against humanity. So part of the obligation to examine whether any actions, policies, practices of other states are aiding and supporting unlawful action on the part of Israel extends to looking at the ways in which other states are giving support, moral or otherwise, to what is happening in Gaza. Now, as I say, this is not a question of pressuring the state of Israel. It's a question of meeting state obligations under international law. These obligations can't be avoided if we are committed to the international rule of law. The starting point, then, is an urgent, thorough examination, released publicly, of these relationships, and then action to ensure that any areas that are identified that can be seen that have the effect of aiding and assisting the unlawful actions are stopped. It's as simple as that. It's a question of law. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chris, for your insight about what's happening in this inquiry commission. And now for the long-awaited Ms. Alicia Koutsoulieris. Ms. Alicia, are you there? Sorry for keeping you waiting for that long. And you may have the floor.
Oh, it's perfectly all right. Thank you again for the invitation to participate in this very important conversation. So the question is the threatening sanctions enough? I think we have gone past the point of questioning if the threatening the sanctions is enough. I think there needs to be concrete movements, not only in Europe, but within the United States, to hold the Israeli government accountable for the actions of the past year and a half. It is so unfortunate that we have been watching a genocide unfold, and there are world leaders and partners that could have quick effects on having these things stopped immediately, but instead the Israeli government continues to garner support to allow the genocide to continue to take place. The UN had a report in 2012, it's 11 years prior to the start of this current genocide. And it said if the conditions within Gaza did not improve by the year 2020, then Gaza would be uninhabitable. So that was a report many years ago, and the things have not improved. And in fact, they have changed drastically. The conditions within Gaza, we are seeing not only the constant attacks on civilians, but now we're seeing starvation being used as a weapon of war. The pictures that are coming out of Gaza of the people that are basically they're starved to the point where they're skin and bones. It looks like it's very reminiscent of seeing the pictures that were coming out of the concentration camps at the end of World War II. So the United States and the European Union, I think, have a responsibility to not only threaten sanctions, but start to implement them and hold the Israeli government accountable, especially here in the United States. Prior to October 7th, we were, the US government was allowing $3.8 billion of aid, mostly in the form of military aid, for the Israeli government. And now with this current genocide, we see what is happening, and it's unfolding in real time in front of our eyes, thanks to social media. We don't have to rely on the information that is filtered by the media. We are watching through social media as it's happening, and it's unfolding in real time. But the U.S. government, instead of stopping the aid, what do? They are rewarding basically the Israeli government with even more funding. There have been numerous reports that show that the U.S. weapons have been used in the airstrikes that have taken place in Gaza. And it's really hard to, as an American, to wrap your head around it, that these weapons, we're giving the Israeli government some of the most sophisticated weapons and, technology, and they can't determine which is a military target versus a hospital or a refugee camp or a school. Like, these are the places that they're targeting and they have the most sophisticated weapons, and they're using them to target civilians. So I think that we definitely need to step up and hold them responsible. In the United States, there are laws that are set in place to hold different nations accountable. We have the Foreign Assistance Act of 1961. Along with Leahy laws that prohibits the U.S. State Department and the Department of Defense from providing military assistance to any foreign security force units that violate human rights laws with impunity. And that's basically what we've watched happen. So at this point, like I said, we're beyond threatening sanctions. I think we need to put basically, put our figuratively foot down to make sure that these put forth the sanctions to make sure they are in place, and so this will basically end, and then also to make sure that humanitarian aid is allowed into the region without any type of delay. Amnesty International, in their apartheid report from 2022, stated that within the Gaza Strip, the Israeli government used mathematical formulas to determine how many calories an individual needs to survive, not to live or thrive, but just simply to survive. And that times the amount of the population, that's the amount of aid that was being let into the Gaza Strip. And this was all prior to October 7th. So you can just imagine how horrid the conditions are now, because the aid has been completely cut off for the past 2 months. So I understand that there's some aid that is slowly starting to trickle in, but definitely not enough. So yes, we have to go beyond just the threats of sanctions and start really holding the Israeli government accountable for their actions.
Thank you very much, Alicia, for this input. And now, since everybody has already spoken, and now I have a question for each and every one of our distinguished guests, and the question will be answered by each and every one. The question is, in your opinion, what are concrete movements can be taken from your government, in particular, the parliament and your civil society? I mean, concrete movement. And we can start with Mr. Malik bin Achour, if he can just answer this question for us, Mr. Malik.
Well, I've talked about that in my first intervention, and I quite agree with what Chris said. It's not a matter of sanction; it's a matter of respecting our obligations, and those obligations come from international law. So it's a matter of credibility. How can we promote international law in Ukraine or wherever else in the world if we cannot respect it in Gaza. This is, common sense. But concrete action, as I said, I think first of all, and politically it would mean something. We need to suspend the association agreement with Israel. This is for me first priority. It would be relevant politically, and it would be a first step to end the impunity in which Israel seems to act. So politically, I would say first priority is suspension of this agreement. And of course, embargo of arms, but Belgium is less concerned because, as I said, we forbade it for 15 years.
Thanks, Malik. And Mr. Sidoti, if you can just ask the same question, in your opinion, what are concrete movements that can be taken from your government or your side, in particular, in parliament, civil society, concrete movements?
I would respond by emphasizing again the need for a fast, urgent, thorough examination of all relationships with the State of Israel. This is something that governments should undertake, but if they fail to do so, it's an initiative that can be taken by parliaments. And if parliaments are not acting, then civil society itself can not only apply political pressure on governments and parliaments, but it can also start the examination process itself. It's already been too long. This should have started last July. It's not something that can be spun out any longer than this. And so my starting point is that, but I emphasize the urgency. It's not good enough to say that we'll conduct a review and we'll report in 5 years' time. It is urgent. It needs to be done now. It is already long overdue.
Yes, exactly. And Alicia, if you want to add up to this, what do you think your government can do concrete decisions by your governments to, in particular, parliament and civil society can do to be taken for this issue?
So we're looking to implement the Safeguarding Human Rights in Arms Exports Act. This particular bill is designed to take specific measures to prevent the sale, export, or transfer of defense articles or defense services to foreign countries for the use of violations of international humanitarian law or internationally recognized human rights. The measure includes prohibiting arms sales to countries committing genocide or war crimes, which now there have been a number of nation states and human rights organizations that have identified this is not just a war or a conflict that's happening in Gaza. It is definitely a genocide. The measure also is requiring consideration of human rights practices and in any foreign country to which the arms sales are contemplated, and providing for congressional oversight for arms exports to foreign countries where certain human rights violations have occurred. And then we are also urging the White House to immediately suspend all weapons transfers to the Israeli government, facilitate an immediate and permanent ceasefire, and demand, as I said before, demand humanitarian access into the Gaza Strip, with no conditions. These all need to happen immediately. That's what we're looking for, or that's what we think that the U.S. government should be implementing immediately.
Yes, exactly. And now to Mr. Jim Moran, your concrete movement from your government, especially the American government. Just can you turn on the mic, please? Mr. Moran? Can you turn on the mic? The mic.
Okay, is that okay? All right, well, I've got the
yes.
toughest task because the American government's actions have been inexcusable and unjustifiable. So 3 things. The United States should comply with international law. Second, it should comply with any number of provisions of American law, both of which would result in cutting off the military aid that we're providing to Israel for the purposes for which it's using it, 2,000-pound bombs, which can't discriminate between the people who you're attacking and the civilian population. We know that. Well, the United States wouldn't use 2,000-pound bunker buster bombs, but we let Israel do it. So comply with international law, comply with American law. And then thirdly, do what so many American Jewish professors and students at our best universities are calling for, which is to boycott, divest, and sanction those American corporations that are enabling Israel to continue this ethnic cleansing. There has to be some moral component of what corporations do as well as what governments do. And right now, both are acting immorally and illegally and certainly unethically. So that's what needs to change.
Thanks very much, Mr. Moore. And finally, Mr. Syed, the same questions to your government as well.
Yeah, thank you. I was just browsing and for your information today and yesterday, we are here in Malaysia, we are holding the 46th ASEAN Summit. And this is the first time where we have the summit together with GCC and China as well. And one of the focus discussion was on Palestinian issue. And I think this is a very important purpose of Malaysia being the chairmanship of ASEAN and brought into the agenda of Palestine, where we discussed with the Gulf Cooperation Council. Although these are, Arab countries, I know, they have been strong words, but no action actually. But then again, it is still a platform for Malaysia, especially in ASEAN, to bring about or to raise the issue of Palestine. And I think this is a good platform at our level. Secondly, I think we are still in the progress of getting more support from member of parliaments in Southeast Asia, in the South Asia, and I would also like to also engage with more MPs from Australia and also from New Zealand for that matter, the Asia Pacific, because to me it is an important issue now, and this is a very good juncture for us now to demand for more support when we talk about rule of law, when we talk about international law, ICJ, ICC. And I think we should use this platform now to really, demand for more support and be more outspoken about the issues at hand. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And since everybody has answered the question, now we're our last segment. And Yani, in less than a minute, what is your final remarks or a message from this webinar? In a minute, who wants to start? Some more.
Well, we know what the right thing to do is. Stand on the right side of history. Act according to your conscience. Do the right thing. Do what your children and grandchildren, great-grandchildren would want you to do today. This is a challenge for the entire world community. Right now, we're failing that challenge. Step up. Do the right thing. Lead the future in the right direction. If we don't, it's just going to get worse. We need to make an example of what's happening in Gaza, and say once more, 80 years later, never again. We stopped this because it was wrong.
Absolutely right. And who else wants for the last? Alicia, go ahead.
So I think it's coming from the United States, I think it's a phenomenal thing that that we're a nation that is able to step in and provide aid when it's necessary, in times of conflict or potentially after a natural disaster. But with what we have seen in the past 18 months, we are on, as Mr. Moran said, we are on the wrong side of history. Providing this continuous aid in order to fuel a genocide is not where we want to be on the world stage. So I think that we need to encourage our governments to stop the unconditional support, allow humanitarian aid to come in, but also keep in mind that October 7th was not the beginning of something, it was a reaction to something. So once this genocide has ended and we have the opportunity to move on, we need to recognize that the people living within the Gaza Strip, they've been there living under a crippling blockade for almost 2 decades. So that blockade needs to end. And also, we need not to forget the Palestinians, which include both Muslim and Christian populations that are living in the occupied West Bank. They've been living under a military occupation for almost 6 decades. A military occupation is supposed to be a temporary military tactic, but instead it has gone on for decades, crippling the lives of the Palestinians that are living there, and they just want to be. They just want to have live lives with peace and dignity as the rest of us do. So, so we need to look beyond the end of the genocide and allow these crippling implementations of a way of life that the Israeli government has put forth on the Palestinian people, and allow those things to be lifted so they can live in peace and dignity as the rest of us would like.
Thank you, Alicia, very much. And Mr. Syed?
Yeah, I just like to conclude by saying that we should do this for the sake of peace. And we should do this for the sake of Dr. Ala An-Najjar, who lost 9 of her children in a bomb explosion when she was, in her shift in the hospital in Gaza. We should do this for the sake of justice. And therefore, we demand for everybody to respect the law as you demand from us. And I think this is the right of return for the Palestinians, the right for their home. And therefore, that would be the long-lasting peace that would be warranted for the Palestinians. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Syed, very much. And lastly, Mr. Chris Sidoti.
Thank you. Like I guess many of the people watching this discussion, I spend most of each day seeing, reading, listening to what is happening in Gaza. And I can't believe it. I can't believe what I see and hear and read. I can't believe that this is going on, that it's been going on now for 19 months, that tens of thousands of people have been killed, thousands of them, tens of thousands of them, women and children, and yet it's tolerated. First and foremost, for anybody, the sense of distress at seeing the suffering of ordinary people must be overwhelming. And our concern, first and foremost, must be for the Palestinian people, but also for the people of Israel, that all this is happening. But I also feel concern for all of us, because the entire international system is unraveling before our eyes. And it's as though all the states that built that system, all those that have struggled to make it a system that worked, even though it constantly failed, all this effort has been in vain. What's happening in Gaza is tragic for the Palestinians, but I'd like to see more realization that it's tragic for us all.
Absolutely.
It is. It is. With these touching words, we are at the end of this valuable webinar. I would like to thank each and every one of our guests who have taken part in this webinar by speaking, commenting, or even listening. And thank you very much for your precious time today. And we'll meet again in next webinar, inshallah. Thank you very much. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, and good night from Australia.